And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to Distilling 101. We got questions, we got the answers. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We had a pretty good time at Maggie. Sorry didn't do a live on Saturday. I was pretty worn out. Spent all day there at the festival. Had a good time. Kind of started drizzling that night, so we ended up driving home that night. So it was a long, tiring night. But glad everybody could show up. Had a lot of interest in the podcast. A lot of people asked a lot of questions, and hopefully, some people that were there at the festival that are interested in getting into shining will come on and have some questions. Hopefully, they'll find us. We gave them the link through, I guess, through YouTube. I need to get some cards and stickers. That's what I need to really do and kind of promote the podcast a little bit. But as always, got to get those links out there. So bear with me. Let me find my list. I haven't used it in a while. Where is my list? All right. Oh, it's got to be here somewhere. There it is. Got a bunch of little lists here. What's going on, Patty? That's great to hear, brother. That's if I turn those slightly, bad experience into a good one. I'm glad that leaky column didn't end up being a real bad experience. I've had some nightmares. People, get things caught on fire and everything. Knock on wood. But that's awesome to hear, man. So, what was it that you distilled? I'm trying to think. Was it a corn-based vodka? Let me get this shared, and we'll chat about that. I'm glad everybody made it out to the festival though that could. It was a good turnout and a good time. Missed a few, missed Phil Billy and quite a few people there this weekend didn't make it. They are normally there. Miss Jay and Amanda, they weren't able to show. Big Easy wasn't there, and the Sandman wasn't there. I missed quite a few of my friends. Oh, here, dead air. Got my mind thinking here while I'm sharing these links. Trying to think of doing two or three things at once in my mind. But I got to get these links shared and then we can chat. For those that are just tuning in, welcome. I'm not able to see the screen right now, sharing the links, but as soon as I can, we'll start answering some of your questions and greet some of y'all that are just now coming in. There we go. Hopefully, we can get a few of these shared. Had a little bit of rain this weekend. I'm glad they got some rain down there. It's my understanding they've, North and South Carolina has had a little bit of a drought. Well, some parts have had a little bit of a drought this year. Some parts have been getting plenty of rain. So I found that particular area has been getting lots of rain, but I guess there's other parts of the state that are kind of dry. So Here we've been getting plenty of rain, which is nice if you have a garden. You don't have to water as often, so that's pretty nice. Got my garden in a little late this year. We had a little bit of a late freeze, and weather was real cold this spring here. Man, I couldn't find that, and it was in all caps. Bigger than hell. Wow. Got a few more, and it's going to stop me. Not been feeling well. Got an allergy. On the verge of sneezing. Wait a minute. It went away. I'm going to sneeze here in a second. I've been having allergies. Oh, my nose is itching. Oh, so bear with me. We'll get these links out. We're about done. But I got to see a lot of friends this weekend. Got to drink a little bit of shine. Had a good time. Just a few more here. Damn it. All right, so it stopped there. All right. 3 more and I'd been done. Just 3 more little links. Damn. I wish they'd let me get them out there. What's going on, Gary? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I noticed. Well, Friday we ended up getting in Maggie. We got a late start and didn't get into Maggie Friday until about 5:30. So we decided to grab a bite to eat, and after I ate, been driving on the road and didn't sleep well the night before, so I was like, nah, let's kind of take it easy. I'll take a little nap. We'll go by the Comfort Inn, and that nap ended up being a pretty good little nap. And went by the Comfort Inn about 11. Hung out, talked to Alfredo, and Shua was there, and a few others, and sat and chatted, had a good time, and then Saturday we went to the festival and had a good time. Saw a lot of people and a lot of fun. Yeah, you got to really pay close attention. It's especially once you start getting to do it. You'd think after you get more seasoned and do it more, then you notice more, but actually it's just the opposite. You kind of get complacent and actually, well, some people do get a little bit more complacent and don't pay as much attention, right? So done it 100 times. I've never had any issues. Doesn't mean that you won't have an issue this time. So, kind of like I always say, it's like the truckers and the pilots. Walk around that vehicle, kick the tires, check everything out. Because the one time that you don't, inevitably something's going to happen, and it can be pretty bad. So, tried a blueberry run last week, made a few half pies, tasted like jet fuel, ready to try another run. High proof shine is going to, taste like that, especially, I think a lot of people have a different, um, it's hard to say. I think people perceive it coming out differently than what it usually does. Um, I think people tend to taste something that is kind of been post flavored, and they expect brandies to be really, really strong and have that fruit punch and just just knock you down with flavor, and they most don't. Um, Maintaining that flavor is very difficult, and letting it air out, getting those higher volatiles evaporated off can help a lot. Pot stills traditionally, make a little bit headzier distillates, of course, than fractional columns and different setups that are designed to be a little higher attenuate, have a higher attenuation than just a pot still. Pot stills are great for brandy. They're great for carrying flavor, but you have to, be really weary about making your cuts and, aging. We talk about esterification, and something coming right off that tap is not going to taste near as good as something that's, sits in the jar for, 4 to 6 months and has that chance to esterify and has, give it time for that chemical reaction to take place. Um, Leaving that jar open for a day, maybe two, with a little cheesecloth over it, will definitely help. When things evaporate, the higher the volatile um, alcohol, the quicker and easier that it'll evaporate, and generally has lower boiling points as well. Um, and if you leave that jar open, that those higher volatiles will evaporate off, and it'll taste less like isopropyl alcohol, and it'll be less sharp and astringent is one of the words that's commonly used. It'll be less astringent and taste less alcohol-y. A lot of people use that alcohol-y, and I'm kind of guilty of it too. And that's when things kind of taste like isopropyl, just pure alcohol, and not what you would typically expect. So and that'll happen, brother. And it's not a failure on your part. It's just expectations. You expect it to come out and just smack you with that good flavor, and a lot of times it's just not going to do that. The distillation process is naturally used to get rid of impurities, and unfortunately, all these flavonoids and all these flavors are, you know, like impurities, and they get distilled off. And that's how we get rid of a lot of bad stuff in the water when we distill water, right? Is kind of distilled off. All the other stuff kind of gets behind, and we boil the water off and purify it. Well, it's a purification for alcohol as well, and we got to kind of defeat that purification process to help carry a lot of those flavors over. But like I say, if you can tell what fruit it was made from, and you can still taste a little bit of that fruit in there, then you pretty much made a pretty successful run. Um, but it's your first few brandies aren't going to be the best in the world. I can tell you that. It's a trial and error, and the infusion process helps immensely. The jar rigs having 1 versus 2 versus 3, each individual jar that you add that you can use for infusing, it does add flavor. So a single jar rig is going to add a little bit, but a triple jar rig, it really does add quite. It just not exponentially, but it does get quite a bit more through each subsequent infusion. It definitely helps. What's going on, Curtis? Good to see you. All corn vodka. Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully my vodka turns out well. It's. I'm going to take a picture of it so everybody can see. It's got a lacto infection on it, and it's a classic lacto. It's pretty heavy. It's got the bubbles, and I know how I got it. And so hopefully it'll taste pretty good. It's a potato, and right now the potatoes are on sale again, $1 for 5 pounds of russet potatoes, and they're good sized russets too. They're good bacon potatoes. They're not huge, but really good potatoes. $1 for 5 pounds, 20 cents a pound. I mean, that's some cheap vodka right there, and it smells real good. Actually, probably one of the better, probably the best smelling potato mashes I've ever had. And usually they're not all that great. I've had some, get kind of. We talk about butyric acid, the vomit, kind of smell that butyric gets, and some of the organic acids in a potato vodka can kind of take it in some strange places. But this one is, I think the lacto has helped because I normally don't get a lacto, but I know how I got it this time. But um, what's going on, Liquor Good Steel? I'm going to call you Liquor. Learned a lot from the podcast so far. Appreciate y'all coming on and discussing things. We'll support this channel any way we can. We got to get a hold of some flags now. Yeah, we've got some militia flags. Definitely get up with Damon and Phil Billy, and they can hook you up. We got a couple ones. We got a Friday show called the Shit Show, and I think this Friday is going to be a shit show Friday. And it's just where everybody comes on there and just talks about shit, everything. You never know. It can get a little bit crazy, but it's a lot of fun. But yeah, we've got quite a few shows, and we got some new shows coming on. Talked about a little bit this weekend. There's going to be some new shows coming on, and maybe Saturday before mine, maybe at 6, there's going to be a fella coming on, going to be doing some interview type podcasting. It should be interesting. Seems like it's going to be pretty good. So, yeah, we got some new shows coming on, so that should be pretty good as well. But yeah, we definitely appreciate the support, and thanks for coming on and bring your questions. Anybody got questions, or promote us? If you got some friends that are just getting into the hobby and they got questions or want some advice, send them our way. We'll take care of them. Yeah, I know how it goes, brother. Yeah, it gets tough, but you can make it here. That's the most important thing. But yeah, Maggie's a lot of fun, and Farm to Bottle. And if you live anywhere in the area, it's really good to try to make it. It's a lot of fun. Not sure if I'm going to be able to make it to Arkansas. I had a really good time down there and really enjoy it, but it's such a long drive. I can't make that drive myself. If I can ride with somebody, I can, and I'll definitely continue to go. But me personally, I can't drive that far. It's like a 12-hour drive. I literally was almost falling asleep at the wheel on the way home from Maggie. I had to pull over and had to take the wheel. I literally zoned out twice. I'm like, well, I got to pull off. Dangerous. What's going on, John? Good to see you, brother. Oh man, I got some friends that live in Arizona, and it's just crazy hot out there right now. Yeah, and well, a heat wave across the U.S. I think we got close to 90 today, and but we've had pretty good summer. Had about a week or a couple weeks in the 90s, which is about typical for us. And then normally it kind of cools off. So it was a little bit earlier. Had a really late cold, cold this spring, or late cold, and then freezing, and then it went from freezing to 80 in no time, and then got into some week or two in the 90s, and was pretty pleasant for the last couple of weeks, and now we're kind of inching back up into low 90s. But I think it's just a couple of days, and we're going to be back in the 80s, and I'm happy with that. What's going on, Mr. Boyd? Good to see you, brother. How are things in Danville, Pennsylvania? Got a lot of friends up in Pennsylvania. Oh, buddy Jay and Amanda live up there. Good to see you, man. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, miss seeing you, brother. Yeah, Thursday. Really wish I could have made it Thursday and gone to the nursing home and brought some gifts. I remember not last year. Yeah, last year and year before we went and handed out gifts, and that was very nice, rewarding, great people, and it was a lot of fun. And they look forward to us coming every year. Amanda wasn't able to make it this year. She had some other things that she had pending, so she wasn't able to make it down and didn't get to see my buddy Jay. Um, but yeah, I wish I could have been there for that. Well, yeah, we catch y'all at the Far in the Bottler next year or here twice a week. What's going on? Good to see you, Mr. Wiggins. Doing pretty good, brother. How about yourself? There's JJ. Now I'm gonna butcher your name. Zulfagar? I know I'm not saying that right. I'm just gonna call you Zol. Because I'm butchering that, and I'm not real I'm not real good at pronouncing. If it was, I can't. I don't know how the Q is pronounced. Your strawberry brandy turned out good. That's awesome. You used inverted sugar instead of regular sugar. Running Bloody Butcher corn bourbon. Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, inverting sugar does help. It is a little bit time consuming, and it's holding it at that 237 degree temperature and making sure it doesn't crystallize. It does take a little bit of work, but it does really make some very, very good sugar. Thing it does it sugar is sucrose, right? Table sugar is called sucrose, and it's basically fructose and glucose bonded together, so it's a disaccharide. And when you invert it, you break that glycosidic bond and you create individual molecules. And the yeast tend to eat those single molecules a lot easier. It's a lot less stress on them, and as a result, can produce a little better flavor. And it's especially good for those of you that like to make, desserts and pastries and things of that nature. It really makes for better, like let's see, cake icings, things like that. Any kind of fillings, anything like that you use sugar in. If you invert that sugar, it has a much sweeter flavor, even on your own palate, on your tongue. It's a different sweetness than just pure. You can taste the difference in just pure sugar, and put it on your tongue and taste it, and then do the inverted sugar, and it is tastes much sweeter. And that's why a lot of pastry chefs and confectioners and stuff definitely prefer it. If you get tired of doing that or you just don't want to, you can always just buy dextrose. It's a monosaccharide, but it's just glucose. It doesn't have that fructose molecule. It's just a glucose molecule, but it's a monosaccharide as well. And yeast, really they love it. Takes them a little bit longer to eat a fructose molecule than a glucose molecules, but um, it's a lot less stress environment for them, and they definitely prefer it. And it makes for some good brandies. Thing about strawberry though is it's amazing how little sugar's in a strawberry. You would think that it was one of the sweetest things, when you eat them and they taste so good, but surprisingly enough, there's very little sugar in a strawberry. And yes, I'm gonna pull up my chart for those that watch much, you know exactly what's coming next. But it's shocking um, how little sugar that they've got in them. Here we go. There's our handy dandy chart. Let me hide that chat there for just a second. Now you'd think that strawberries be up here with raspberries and orange and apricots, pears. Look how low it is. Below a grapefruit. Less sugars in the strawberry than a grapefruit. Now, who would have thought that? If you just said, yeah, strawberries have less sugar than the grapefruit, you'd be like, nah, that old sour grapefruit, there's hardly any sugar in there. Um, but they do. There's not a lot of sugar in them, which is why when we use that hydrometer, we end up adding a lot of sugar to them. So, um, yeah, yeah. The Bloody Butcher. Now, the Bloody Butcher is it's got some oils in it. You know, a lot of it's one of those you either love or hate. You know, a lot of people, you know, love it. It's got that oily, grungy, earthy, really, strong flavor. And if it's the first time you ever do it, you'll definitely see oil on the top. Normally you'll see little small penny size, maybe pencil head sized little circles of oils, that bond together on the top. But when you get that Bloody Butcher, man, you'll get some big old um, I don't know, groupings of oil on the top. A lot of people, their first time they do it, they're like, "Oh my God, something's wrong," and they see all that and they're like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And sometimes like particles of the cornmeal, when it's ground down finally, will get in that oil and it'll make it kind of look funny. So instead of just like an oil slick, round oil slick on the top, it's got these little white flakes and stuff in it. And people are like, oh my God, what is this? It doesn't look like lacto, and people are concerned this is something you're going to ingest. So a lot of times, especially for first timers, they like, oh, I've done something wrong. This doesn't look right, and it's perfectly normal, but it does. It gets quite oily, and people love it or hate it for that reason. But it's good stuff. What's going on, Mr. Pollen? Good to see you, brother. I just ran a rice and out vodka and came out great. Yeah, rice makes some good stuff. Trying to think of getting old. Can't remember. CRS, man. I can't remember shit. But yeah, rice makes some really good liquor, and there's a yeast that's out, and I think it was pretty much designed. It's the Yellow Label Angel yeast for those that's not used it, and it's oh, well, we'll talk about that Jagger Yee in a minute. Zol Zulfikar. Give me just a second. We'll talk about it. Actually, I just posted in a couple of groups talking about that, and there try to make a good out of a bad, and we'll get to you in just a second. But it's something I definitely want to hit on. It's something I just watched a little bit of a special on. If it wasn't so long, I'd play it on here because it is definitely a good listen to. And if you're not on DIY Shine and Steel Building or the Moonshine Militia on Facebook, definitely join one of those groups. And probably a little easier to get into the DIY Shine and Steel Building. We just pretty much let everybody in there. The militia, you have to have a referral, and if you do go to the militia, just tell them that you're from this page. But uh, there is a video that I just posted on vinegar, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But yeah, the Yellow Label Angel yeast, it's got a goji fungus that's been added to it, and it basically can convert, the starches without the use of amylase. It's got its own, I guess, a fungal amylase built into it, or there's amylase added. But it'll do the conversion without cooking and gelatinization. And it does the same with rice. You still have to cook the rice and gelatinize the starches, and pretty much any of your vegetables and grains that have starch in it, you have to cook them to gelatinize their starches to get them out of the plant matter in order to break them up and convert them right and hydrolyze them. So the Yellow Label Angel yeast will do that, and it's something you don't even have to cook, and it's pretty good. I've not used it yet, but I've had a lot of people that's used it, and soju. That's what I couldn't think of. Sake's easy, but soju. I don't know why I could not think of soju. But yeah, that's probably the most drank alcohol in the world. It's the most drank alcohol in the world, soju. Not as common here in the United States, but pretty much all over Asia and Africa and a lot of countries. It's a staple. Rice and oats is good. Yeah, I like adding oats to just about everything. It softens everything up. Yeah, it was great meeting you too, man. Definitely. And we're glad you stopped in and glad you found us. Like I was just saying at the beginning, man, I'm gonna have to get some cards and some stickers to hand out with the Distilling 101 and a few of our groups and places where you can watch it. Definitely. But yeah, it was great talking to y'all. Had a good time. Yeah, got to see Mr. Joe. Good seeing you, brother. Yes, it was. Yeah, we got a pretty good little storm through here last night. Some areas of southeastern Kentucky up to 70 some mile an hour winds. So we've had some pretty bad, um, yeah, pretty bad storms. On my Jaggery mead turned into a vinegar. That will happen. What happens is it requires something called an acetobacter, and the acetobacter can get into your wines generally in two ways. It's either on the fruit and the fruit doesn't get cooked at high enough temperatures to kill it, or it comes in via a fruit fly. Very common thing to happen. That's why a lot of winemakers and will cover it right and use the airlocks is to keep those flies out and keep it from getting in there, via pest. That's also a reason that a lot of people will cook any fruits that are going into it. Now, winemakers won't do that because they know that high temperature tends to take away a lot of flavor, and it does. So, anytime you bring a lot of these fruits to a really high temperature, you're kind of killing off some of the flavonoids and fruit terpenes and other things that are generally give you some good flavor in your wine. So it's a big no-no for winemakers to heat it to that temperature. It kills the character of the fruit, and it does. So they use a little tablet called a Campden tablet, and it's basically just potassium metabisulfate that's been pressed into a pill form, and you just crush them up and add it, or you can just buy the potassium metabisulfate in the powder form and just use little teeny tiny amounts. It's like quarter teaspoon for I don't remember the dosage, but I do have a chart around here that has a lot of dosages. I'm gonna put out there in the groups. But anyway, back to acetobacter. So it's a bacteria, and it has to have two things. It has to have oxygen and it has to have alcohol, and it will thrive on those two. It'll consume alcohol, and basically it'll create what's known as mother of vinegar. It's kind of a SCOBY. It's a bacterial colony, and it looks kind of like a jellyfish in the form of a pancake, kind of like a translucent pancake sitting on there. My buddy Alfredo Pena, the one that makes the bamboo shine, and his wife Wendy that has the awesome beer. He got one recently in one of his brandies, and he was asking me about it, and we talked about it. And basically, he took out the mother vinegar, and it just came back. So, but back in the old days, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, vinegar was used as a medicinal thing, right? I mean, it was used on cuts and scrapes. It was a miracle drug. I mean, it did a lot of good things. It was used to dress wounds and it helped healing, used for a lot of things. And it was all grown naturally, like you accumulated it. So don't throw that out because it's actually more difficult. And Mike, I don't know, he's not in here yet, but he makes vinegar, right? And it's not easy sometimes to get that vinegar to take. So unless you kind of introduce an acetobacter in there and give it time, that's the other thing it takes. It takes alcohol, it takes an acetobacter, and oxygen and time, right? But they used it, and nowadays they don't use it like that. So it's a lot. It's watered down, and it's not created the same way these days as it was. It's more of a chemical thing, right? And it's not done these days like it was done before, and it doesn't have the uh, medicinal properties that it once had. So making vinegar like that, save it, because it'll actually, it's great, to have a wine vinegar, in cooking, and it's also really good as a holistic medicine, right? So I will. Let me see. Let me look and see how long that video was. Let me check that out. I don't think we got enough time. I don't want to. I don't want to do a long video. Uh, like that. There's a good picture. Big Beard and Steel Wheel posted on here. Let's see. Here we go. Let me go to DIY instead of malicious. It might be a little easy to find. Yeah. And don't forget to remind me at 9:05 or 9:10 to post those links again. Yeah, let's see how long that video is. Well, that's loud. Would they gonna? Okay, let's see here. Oh, it's about a 20-minute video, so it's a little bit too long. Um, but yeah, if you go to DIY Shine and Steel Building, join up and check out that video. It's a really good informative video on vinegar, and we can talk about how to not get it when you don't want it. But if you do get it and you get it like that, keep it, and watch that video and learn to preserve it, because it's different than the vinegar that we get today. It's much better for you gut health wise and for your body, period. So, and it's actually not easy to do. Ask Mikey. He's not in here yet, but he makes vinegar, and sometimes it's tough for him to get it started. But once you get this SCOBY of mother vinegar going, you can use it to reintroduce to other things. So, making a red wine vinegar, it's pretty good. It's great for cooking. I've actually, I've had, some of my wine actually turned into vinegar, and I just keep it, right. It's good to use for cooking, and it's good for your gut health, and it's good for a lot of things. It's actually a kind of a probiotic. So you just, sometimes we can turn these, accidents into positives, right? That's what you got to do. Sometimes if you get a bitter taste and shine come out, just make limoncello, right? So you just gotta, life gives you lemons, make lemonade kind of thing, right? So, but that the vinegar is really beneficial. Yeah, the thing about it is, though, is high temperatures will denature THC. So I don't want to get too much into that. I know Facebook doesn't like when we talk about these things, but it's recreational now, and it's not like other things. But high temperatures will kill THC, so it'll reduce your THC content tremendously. High temperatures also will, like I was talking about the brandies, how it takes a lot of your good delicate fruit flavors away in your winemaking. It does the same thing with cannabis. It'll take a lot of those good terpenes and just trash them. That's why CO2 is one of your better processes for keeping a lot of those good flavors, because it happens at a really low temperature. Yes, you can do it, but it's better to make a really high proof. I'm talking 196 proof vodka plus. The less water you have in it, the better. That's why you really want to distill it to that almost pure ethanol form. That way, when you infuse, basically steep the buds in it, basically just get a jar of buds and pour that in there, and it'll dissolve all your THCs, a lot of your terpenes and other things out of there, but it won't turn green. If you have more water you have in that, the greener it'll turn. But if you want to keep it a nice amber looking color, a natural, color amber. You need to really get 196 plus proof. Even Everclear, some states you can't get pure grain above 150, 170 proof. In some states you can get, the 190. But if you can get a column and distill it and get your 196, which isn't too tough if you got a deflegmator and a column, then you can use for infusion, and that's the best way to kind of steep out the the THC and the flavonoids and the terpenes and all those things, polyphenols, and that's the best way to do that. Is just get you some high proof and steep. Believe it or not, that's the best way to do it. Yeah, yeah. It always boils down to fruit flies are not heating the fruit up to a high enough temperature. Yeah, I got you oats. I love me some oats. All right, right. Well, somehow it was probably you didn't get your fruit to a high enough temperature or whatever you were distilling, um, or I'm sorry, fermenting. You want to get 160 plus temperature and for a few minutes to kill off the bacteria. These acetobacters will definitely die at that temperature and it'll kill them all off. So definitely want to get it up to that temperature and that'll kill everything off and then maintain sanitary. So like wood spoons, if you got this old wood spoon you've been using and flies been lighting on it and you don't keep it sanitized, it's going to introduce it. Now, when it gets into that in such a small little thing, it takes quite a while for it to, you know, come about and multiply to the point where it can do. Sometimes it doesn't make it, right? Sometimes it just doesn't survive. Other things overwhelm it and cut it, eliminate it. But once it takes a hold, it'll definitely multiply. But it does take time. So getting things to that temperature or using the potassium metabisulfate, Campton tablets. You can usually tell a good wine recipe because they'll include that information in the recipe, how much potassium metabisulfate to use, or it'll mention using it. And anytime you see that, you probably got a pretty good a winemaker's recipe and not just somebody that makes it, just in the kitchen. It's more of a professional recipe, and that's really one of the better ways to do it. Does you definitely don't want to use too much of it. You definitely want to follow the proper dosage, or you start building up some sulfurs because it does have some sulfur in it. And when you distill, that brandy that it's been used in, make sure that you have some copper in the vapor path to help remove those sulfites that you do introduce into it. Um, as far as the wine, it typically goes away, and that sulfur odor kind of ends up being kind of a sweet congener. So it's not a bad thing, but it's something you definitely don't want to overdo. It'll definitely trust me. Had a brandy I was making, and I was on vacation. I think I might have been in Arkansas at a festival, and told Ann, I was like, "Oh, you got to add potassium metabisulfate to this because it was to a wine, and I wanted to kill off the yeast while it still had some sweetness to it, right?" And that's another method to make a sweeter wine. You have to add it to kill all the yeast off before it consumes all the sugar. If you want to maintain some sweetness in your wine, or you can let it run its course. Use potassium sorbate, which will neutralize the yeast, and they don't breed anymore, and then they'll just die off, and then you can back sweeten, right? And that's another method of doing it. But I'll just add the potassium metabisulfate, and just when I'm degassing the wine, it'll degas that chemical as well. So I was telling Ann how much to use, and she thought I said tablespoons, and I said teaspoons. So that couple of teaspoons turned into 2 tablespoons, and man, it wasn't bad, but it was a damn good thing I had that copper mesh because it really took every bit of it to get it out of it, and I gassed it and degassed it and let it sit a little longer, and did that several days, and it gassed a lot off, and then I guess the copper took the rest off. What's the best way to get a sugar wash out of stall? Um, but 10 points. First things first, always when you're doing a sugar wash, you got to make sure you do two things. A, you need to add a nutrient because there's just absolutely no nutrients for your yeast in a sugar wash. So that'll immediately create a stress. And anytime you have a stressed yeast, it can and most often will produce some off flavors. Sometimes people intentionally stress the yeast to create some esters and consider off flavors, but they can use those esters if you know how to make the proper cuts and utilize those esters for aging process. Um, but always make sure you got some nutrients in there. And I tell you, great nutrients is right in that yeast bed in the bottom of your last fermentation. You'll have you'll have yeast in there, and B, you'll have dead yeast in there. And that dead yeast will feed the yeast, and you won't have to add yeast. You can just continue to use that, and you'll have your nutrients and all your yeast. We talk about how to cleanse it, right? That yeast bed in the bottom. So once you siphon off all the clears, take that yeast and pour some water over that bed and kind of neutralize the alcohol and proof it down way and kind of pour it off, let it settle, pour that liquid off, kind of do it again, kind of wash your bed, then pour it through a sieve and get out, all your chunks and organic matter that you can, all your grains and stuff that you can get out of there. And then save that, and you can add it to your next fermentation, and you'll be introducing yeast and yeast nutrients, and even in your washes, just use it in your wash, and it'll help, give it the nutrients and everything that it needs, and it'll give you the yeast. But since you're already stalled, and pH crashing, that's something else that we see a lot in. In high sugar washes like that, the pH tends to crash, and it'll cause stalling as well. So having, you can go to the Tractor Supply or any farmer's feed supply store that you go to and get what's called crushed oyster shells. And it's just a bag of oyster shells that are crushed up. They use it for chickens, to help supplement the calcium, to keep the shells stronger and their calcium up. It's also great in gardening. I use it in gardening, but it's also great to boil and make you a little cheesecloth pouch. Put a bunch in there, and anytime you have that sugar wash, just throw it in the sugar wash, and it'll help buffer that pH and keep it from crashing down. Now, to answer your question, maybe you might have to, at this point, maybe, if you don't mind waiting, you can add the oyster shells, or you can add some pickling lime. If you got pickling lime, it's better than baking soda. Baking soda has sodium in it, and it tends to stress yeast, whereas the pickling lime doesn't. But use that to help boost your pH back up. So get you some pH test strips. I recommend using these kombucha, and let me show you a picture of them. You can get them on Amazon. They're like $9 a roll, and the roll lasts forever. Kombucha is basically fermented wine or tea. They make a wine out of tea by fermenting the tea, and it does great. And these pH strips were made specifically for that. And is it going to open? But yeah, it looks just like this. So you'll see these on Amazon. Just look for kombucha, KOMBUSCHA, I think, or BUSHA test strips. And you'll see that it goes from 0 to 6. So it deals only in the acidic side of the pH scale, right? A lot of others, go from 0 to 14, and it's harder to tell the difference in the colors, in the range that we're talking about. But this one, you can definitely see a distinction in the different colors, and it's a real easy paper to read. You can just tear off a little 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. I put it on some tweezers, stick it down in there, pull it out, and instant read. Just lay it right up against that, and it's real easy to read. It's not exact. We don't have to be that exact. We just need to know what our pH range is. And as long as it's in the greens, somewhere between 5.0 and 3.5, you'll be okay. Starts to get in the low threes, maybe start thinking, I wish I'd had those oyster shells. But if it gets in the twos, then you definitely need to know you're just going to have to add some pickling lime. It's definitely, if it were a wine, it would pretty much be ruined at this point. You're definitely going to have to make a brandy out of it. but you distill out that flavor, that bad flavor. Um, so may have to, get your pH and check it. A lot of times, too, temperatures can cause it to stall. Not so much this time of year, and everybody's getting 100 degree temperatures. But if you've got it inside, and you've got a 70 some degree house and you're using, daily yeast, it's very easy for that to stall because it likes it in the 80s and in that low 70s that you keep a house. Like if it's in a basement, cold floor and cool and, 68, 72 degrees, it's definitely a lot cooler than you prefer it to be, right? And unless you have like a wine yeast or an EC 1118, which is where I'm going next. You can unstick, and that's one of the things that Lalvin EC 1118. It's pretty much it's a champagne yeast. It's a Saccharomyces cerevisiae ex Bayanus strain of yeast, and it's very, very vigorous. It has a large range in alcohol that'll tolerate up to 18%. It has a pretty large temperature range without stressing, which is great for beginners, and it's great for stuck fermentations as a result. It handles a wide pH range, wide temperature range, and wide alcohol range, which makes it great for beginners. Doesn't impart a lot of flavor, so if you're using a yeast and you're expecting it to provide some flavors, might want to choose something else. But if you're wanting a good neutral yeast, it's not going to give you a good or bad flavor. It's just pretty much a neutral flavor. It's good, and it's not really high flocculent, so you don't get a lot of yeast bed out of it, which is a great thing for winemakers. And it works real well for unsticking fermentation. So, check your temperatures, make sure you're warm enough for the yeast. It could be just, kind of stalled a little bit due to the lower temperatures. They tend to kind of, go into hibernation a little bit and slow down a lot when it's lower temperatures than they prefer. So, if you're using a daily yeast, you need it to kind of be up in the 80s, mid to upper 80s, where it prefers it. Um, but if it's not temperature, check pH. And if your pH is okay, then just add some more yeast and it should take care of that for you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is. It is a lot of fun. It's a good time. Yeah, but you're not gonna put star sand in your stuff. But yeah, it's great to the acetobacters is what you're really wanting to kill, and star sand will definitely kill those acetobacters. But these flies, man, when they light on something, they have this on them from crawling on fruit. And if you've ever seen, have you ever done any fermentation of fruits or anything, um, they all over it. And it's really a good way to get rid of them is to put some wine in there, or a little bit, add a little vinegar to the wine, and add like a little funnel into a jar, and they'll fly down in there, and it's hard for them to find the hole to get out, and they just get trapped in there. I've made some fruit fly traps doing that, and it's like you wouldn't believe how many fruit flies will get trapped in there, and it will amaze you. You'll think, I didn't realize I had that many fruit flies. And then once you create the trap, and it's like, I can't believe there's so many fruit flies in there. Uh-oh. Well, oh, okay, Joe. Well, you got my answer because I didn't I didn't start answering it. I'm a little bit behind. So it's 8:54, and so hopefully you got all that. So you did heat it to a good temperature? Well, that's good. Yeah, heating it up to 190, but having that airlock or just anything to keep those flies out. And you got to kind of boil things after you use everything. Just clean everything with boiling water, and that'll help keep those fruit flies down. But a lot of times it's actually on the fruit when we add it, and if you don't heat it up, or even in the honeys, if you don't pasteurize, kind of heat them up, yeah, it'll definitely carry through. Is that what you do? Yeah, it's when life hands you lemons, man, you just got to make lemonade. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard to heat up water. When you can't even boil water without it foaming up. One, I don't know about mead. I don't think it would help with your mead, but if it's something you're going to distill, having a little butter, will help knock out some of that foaminess, or a vegetable oil even, or having corn in there will help cut down where the oil from the corn will seep out, and it'll help keep it from foaming up. But basically, anytime you got a grain wash, especially, I know that you're not dealing with that with your mead, but um, anytime you're dealing with grain, you've got a beer, right? And if you taste that, it's carbonated, right? Your mash, your grain mashes are carbonated. I mean, if you take a good enough sip of it, it's like a beer. It's carbonated. It is a beer per se. So those foam up tremendously. So most beginners tend to overfill their stills the first couple of times and puke over a little bit. So they learn, it foams up quite a bit. So don't overload your stills too. But yeah, I'd say that's definitely, using an airlock that can hold in that CO2 and eliminate the air, the oxygen from the environment will definitely help you for sure. Because it has to have alcohol and it has to have oxygen and time. Hey Becky, how are you? I'm doing well. How about yourself? I'm sorry, I'm a little behind. I'm about 20 minutes behind, but that kind of happens. Yeah, Jaggery is sugarcane, right? And it can, it's very common. A lot of sorghum, but yeah, there's a lot of cane sugars. Right, right, like a Zolka. We get, I guess, a Morena sugar, Zolka sugar. It's a more of a raw sugar. It's not quite like um, a molasses or at that stage yet. It's kind of in between. It's just not been refined. It's not been converted to a white sugar, so it's not a refined sugar. Well, that's all right. What's going on, Shrode? Is there a taste difference between a copper column and a stainless column packed with copper mesh? No, you're not gonna. You're not. Most columns, if you use the copper mesh, you're going to get so much copper coverage in that vapor. So you got such a large surface area with that copper mesh. Um, you're not going to be able to tell the difference at all. You probably could if you had just a stainless pot and column versus a all copper pot and all copper column. You're going to see a little bit of difference that in the sulfites, but having that copper mesh, you have such a large surface area with that mesh. Um, got to picture it this way. So if you've got a column this big around and you've got vapors coming up, really the only place the vapors are contacting that column is on the outside, right? The vapors that are on the inside, they're not coming into contact with that copper at all. But if you force all those vapors through a big wad of rolled up mesh, and you want to roll it up loosely, you don't want to pack it too tight. You want the vapors to flow through fairly freely, but you'll get a lot of coverage. All that vapor will come into contact with copper for sure, 100%. And you'll get so much better coverage. It's a larger surface area. So yeah, it's definitely much better practice to do that. That used to be one of the big benefits of the copper steels versus just a all stainless type steel or a glass setup, is that you had that copper to remove those sulfites. But now that, people just add the copper mesh, which is pretty cheap, and you can continuously clean it until it just gets so corroded. You pitch it out and just use some new. It's not very expensive. Um, Definitely the way to go. If you do, even with a copper setup, it certainly helps a lot, especially if you can smell it. A lot of the rotten egg, sulfur dioxide, you can smell a lot of these sulfurs, hydrogen sulfide, H2S. You can smell that, coming off in your distillate. You get a lot of organic smells, a lot of organic acids, and this is just another one of the odors that come off, and it's a byproduct of the fermentation process. Certain fruits tend to create more than others. I know when I do like plums, dark grapes, things of that nature, I tend to get a little bit more. But there's other things that can bring it, and using that copper mesh really helps a lot in removing it for sure. Oh, you ate them gummies, didn't you? Getting heavy. Oh, that's kind of like the way I was driving back from Maggie, man. I didn't eat any gummies, but man, I was zoning out. I had to pull over. All right, JJ, good seeing you, brother. Thanks for dropping me in, my friend. What's going on, Indy? Since you're talking yeast, what would you recommend for a rum and for a honey mead for flavors? For a rum, they make a rum yeast, and it's specifically designed. It's got basically a glucoamylase in there, which help break down a lot of the unfermentables and dextrins in, the blackstrap or molasses. It's got some sugars in there that are a little more complex, trisaccharides and oligosaccharides in there that aren't really fermentable. And it'll help break those down. So a good rum yeast is definitely. I'm trying to think of the specific type. Let me pull it up. They've got it on Amazon. And it basically just says rum yeast on it. And let's see. Rum distillers yeast. Let me get this picture. You'll see it. You'll recognize it the second you do. And it's a pretty decent yeast for rum. And it does say right here, single culture rum yeast strain with glucosidase. And that's basically what we're talking about, glucoamylase. But this is amyloglucosidase. And it's just an enzyme that helps break it down. But let me show you that picture, and you will recognize it. And if you go to Amazon or your beer stores, I don't know if Philbilly sells the yeast or not, but a lot of places will have it. Oh, let me go to screenshots. No wonder I can't find it. Let's see. Screenshots. Here we go. Boom. Yep, that's the stuff. And there's a couple of different packages of it. There's several different kinds you'll see, but most of those are pretty. I'd stay away from the turbo, but most of these are generally rum yeast, and they have the enzymes in it that help break down all the sugars in it. So it's pretty good for that. For meads, I'd say Lalvin 71 or 74. I think it's 74D. Let me pull that up. 74B maybe. D47. I'm sorry. 74. Dyslexia. Lalvin D47 is good, and 71B. That's where I was getting the B. So D47 and 71B are kind of both known for good cider and mead and kombucha. It's good for those. It's really good for ciders and meads. It adds a lot of fruity notes that you'll enjoy. What's going on, Mr. Easy? Built a Distillers app. I sent you a link to it. Will you check it out and let me know what you think? Absolutely, brother. Missed you this weekend, my friend. What's going on, Kevin? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out, bro. Let's see. In fact, let's see here. See if I can break it out. Easy Distillers guide. All right, let's see. This is just a 1 minute video. So I'm going to show this video to everybody so they can see what it is. And then I'll use it this week and we'll talk about it this weekend. But let me figure out how to do this. Let me hide that. Well, let's see. I don't think I have to worry about that. Let me see here. Share screen. So it's going to be my second Facebook. Yeah, this is it. All right, check out the video. I don't know if it's got audio on it or not. Let's see. Let me turn it up. Okay, here's the link you shared. Easy's Distiller's Guide. It's got recipes. You can share it. Walk through videos. Not getting the audio, brother. But you can send it and share. Open as a web app. Okay. So I guess you can use it on your phone as well. I'm just glad to see there wasn't some starfish pics or something. I thought you set me up. Awesome. Definitely check it out. I like the way you give good instructions on how to open it up and use it. Awesome, brother. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Let's see, make sure I get that. Okay. Yeah. We'll definitely check it out, brother. That'll be awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. What's going on, C-Shine? Good to see you, brother. Did your first drum batch is really good? The Datey hadn't distilled it yet. Yeah, Datey works great, but the only difference in the basically this rum wine is basically a Datey, but it's added the glucose. So if you have the glucose, the liquid glucose that we use for grains, that we use with the high temp alpha, just use that. Just pour that in with the regular Datey yeast, and you've done the same thing. So you can just use the yeast that you use and add the glucose. But if you want to, get it all in one and you don't have it, that rum yeast works real well. And you can save it like we talk about. You can save that yeast bed that's created, wash it, rinse it out, keep it in good, jar it up, poke a few holes in the lid. It'll stay in the fridge. It gets dormant, when it gets cold in the fridge, and then every once in a while you can pull it out and just throw a pinch of sugar in there just to keep it thriving, but put it in a bowl, right? Don't just put the jar there, because sometimes when you feed it, if you overfeed it, which is easy to do, that's why I say a pinch, it'll maybe foam up and through the lid. That's why you poke some holes in it. You don't want to build up pressure in there, but it'll catch it in the bowl. If you have enough holes poked in it. If you don't have enough, you just got one, it might just squirt up to the top of the fridge and just give you a shower of yeast. Not so good. But yeah, you could use your Datey yeast with some glucoamylase. That'll work just fine. It's just breaking down some of those oligosaccharides that normally, debranch with glucose in your grains. Being a small scale hobbyist and using a air still only, working on flavorful batches, what's your opinion on the best bang for your buck fruit? Definitely peaches and apricots. They carry over probably about as well as anything. They have a pretty good, strong flavor. But when you do use meaty, fleshy fruits like that, make sure you use your pectic enzymes too, because it really helps get a lot of those sugars and a lot of that flavor out of the pulp, and it does increase your yield just slightly too. So, what's going on, Mitch? Good to see you, brother. Anytime, brother. Yeah, puff, puff, pass. Right, but I want people to see it. I'm glad you put the instructions on how to install it. I'll get it. Yeah, I'll get you, brother. Right there's a link. Normally, I don't allow them in here, but because it's Big Easy, I know it's not some stranger coming in posting a, you know, usually I say don't click that, but in this case, yeah, copy and paste that and check it out. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for sharing it, man. And I'll have to. Can I put that in the DIY Shine and Steel Building page and let the members there have a use of it as well? I'm going to, whether you say yes or not. Just letting you know. But yeah, I appreciate you, brother. But there's a link for those that can't see the Facebook post. Some people can't see this on the screen, but there's the link if you want to copy that down and type it in. I know you would, brother. All right, let me get I got 3 more links to share, so it won't take a second. Can't believe they didn't let me get my last 3 out. All right. Yep, there's the last 2. Yeah, that was it. Let me make sure I got it. Pretty sure I got Brian's LPR. Let me make sure. I want to make sure I get in LPR. Make sure I got it in all the groups. Got to see old Brian this weekend. It's good seeing. All right, let me get it shared there. I thought I hit it. Just a second. Oh, I gotta. Yeah. I guess you gotta. Oh, approve it. Let's see. Okay. All right, we're back. Open to changes and suggestions. Yeah, I'll check it out, brother. I'll see it. Yeah, I was thinking about doing that at one time as well. I was thinking about trying to. Some of these apps are pretty nice, but they're not complete. So I was thinking about trying to figure out how to combine them all into one. But I can't wait to check it out. There definitely needs to be kind of an all-in-one app. I like having a lot of stuff on my phone, so I like that you made it in an app form that you can put it on the phone because most time when you're shining, you don't have your PC or laptop right there in front of you, so you always got your phone. That's why a lot of these charts and stuff. I like adding a lot of these charts and stuff to my because I have to refer back to them. It's like I was showing earlier. Just like this, and how much sugar's in this, and how many pounds of this for that. Because it's as good to use those and just use your hydrometer than trying to keep a recipe written down. But I've got a few of those as well. I've lost a few of them. I don't know if I keep them on little teeny pieces of paper, make little notes, and I'm always tearing up little pieces of paper like this, and writing stuff on it and keeping notes of stuff I need to remember because I can't remember shit anymore. And I do that a lot with my recipes, and they fall out of my file folder, man. I don't know. I think Ann just picks them up and throws them away. What's going on, propane? I have a ferment that I've taken off the grain, and it looks very thick. I'm not sure what is going on with it. It's been 4 weeks, and it's got solids on the bottom of the jug. Yeah. Can it be ran in the still? No, you want to siphon off those clears, right? Um, so did we use high temp alpha amylase, or is this just a sugar grain thin mash, or exactly what we got going on? Because a lot of times you'll develop that cap and then it'll all drop. £10 of sugar. So did you heat it up to, like we talked about, 185 for 90 minutes and gelatinize the corn and use the alpha amylase, or is it just a thin mash with the cornmeal and sugar? Both is fine. I mean, both ways works. Um, Probably going to be a little smoother if you do the grain conversion, but ain't nothing wrong with a thin mash, man. I did that for like 30 years, didn't get a good conversion. Well, that happens. That's why we add sugar sometimes. Sometimes we try to do the conversion and we don't get it. Um, we don't want to lose everything, right? So we punt. We add sugar and just say, all right, we'll fix her the next time, but not going to dump it. But generally with conversions, a lot of times, as long as you can keep it stirred up and not scorched, you can reheat it and get it gelatinized. But again, when it starts settling out like that, you got to really stir the shit out of it to get it back up to temp. And then you denature the enzymes, but you just have to add them again and hope for a better conversion on the second round. But um, it's not an issue. Yeah, just is your fermentation? Do you put the gravity on it? I mean, when you take the gravity reading, you can't just put it in on a cap, right? You got to kind of push the cap to the side and get you a coffee cup in there and just get liquids, right? And then pour it in your jar or your cylinder, graduated cylinder that you're testing your gravity in, and see what your starting gravity is and what your ending gravity is, or tasting it. Is it bitter? Does it taste like a bitter beer? Yeah, flake dry and flaked oats have already been gelatinized. So in the flaking process, it's a steam rolling process. So those get instantly gelatinized when they get rolled out. First try on all grain, it tastes good. Um, so the mash itself, does it taste bitter yet, or is it still got a little bit of sweetness to it? You can also put your fingers in there and rub it and stuff. See if it's a little sticky still. If it's a little sticky, it's probably still has a little bit of sugars in it. But taste it. I mean, just get you a little teaspoon or get you a tablespoon in there and just, take you a little sippy sip or a shot glass. It's a beer, it's basically all it is. And take your drink of it and see, is it real bitter or does it still have some sweetness? If it's bitter, and you've got, if it's done running, and you check your gravity and it's reading 0 and you still got a cap, sometimes you get spent grains that'll float on the top. You can just skim those off and then let it settle and then just siphon off the clears and then leave that yeast bed in the bottom. And like we talked about earlier, put some distilled water on top of that, or something. You boil you up some water and just and don't make it hot though. You don't want to kill that yeast off. Let it cool and just keep rinsing that yeast bed out and getting out all the chunks of corn and flakes of rye or whatever that you got in there, and then let that settle and then rack it off the clears directly into your still and run it and see what happens. Yeah. But not always going to get good conversion. I mean, it happens to all of us. Happened to us a lot more often when we depended on that powdered alpha. A little bit sweet? Well, sometimes when we don't get a good conversion, we don't get converted sugars, right? So it can taste sweet, but the taste test doesn't pass because some of those sweet tasting sugars aren't mono or disaccharides that are fermentable. So we call those dextrins, limit dextrins. So anytime you don't get that complete conversion, then you're going to get some of that sweetness. Even the sugars, those will all ferment out, but you'll still have some unfermentable sugars in there that taste sweet that will never ferment unless you use a glucose or break them up. They're just never gonna ferment. So that's probably what you were tasting is just some of those unfermentable sugars. And it's just chalk it off as lesson learned. It didn't ruin it. So I'm glad it tasted good. But yeah, it's all a learning process, man. I mean, for me, it was mistake after mistake after mistake, and I just didn't get frustrated and let it defeat me. I just kept trying and kept scorching it and just kept trying, and learn as much as I could from each mistake I made. I didn't have the pH test strips or know anything about temperatures and all these things that I've learned over the years. So most of the time I do what everybody else does. But then anything stops, just throw more yeast in there. So I just keep dumping yeast in there and kind of force it to finish, and that's definitely not what you want to do. I learned the hard way there, but the sweetness, yeah. You will definitely note a dryness more than necessarily a sweetness, but ethanol is kind of sweet anyway. So yeah, you should definitely get it to carry forward, but dry. So when you do the hydrometer and you get your gravity and it's down below 1.0 and gets into the 0.98 whatever, then it starts to get what's known as a dry fermentation, and that dryness will carry over too. You've heard of like a dry gin and dry ferments, and you can definitely tell when they get dry versus not. And so a lot of people, they don't like it to get dry like that. So when it's ready, they run it, right? They don't fool around because they don't want it getting dry. Some people don't notice it so much, but if you taste both, you'll definitely notice the difference. Absolutely. So I buy most of my grains from a local brewery. That's good. It's just easy as I pass by there weekly. Absolutely. So they now have most of the grains flaked at a decent price. Flake corn. Do I cook that like cracked corn? No, no. Like I was talking about earlier, in the all the flaked corn, flaked oats, flaked rye, flaked barley, everything that's barley ruins, but it gelatinizes it right in the flaking process because it's like a steam rolling process and it's really hot, almost instantaneously gelatinizes it, which would be great if we could do that at home in our hobby, right? We could just run all our corn through there, flake it, and and gelatinize it instantly and make our own flake. And there you go, Big Easy. You can make us a corn flaker, steamroller. But yeah, it flakes it out and it cooks it instantly. So no, you don't have to. You don't have to. But when you're using the high temp alpha, you still have to use your amylases, right? So we're just bypassing the cooking process, but we still have to convert. So it's broken all those sugars out of the grain itself, right? That were trapped in the grain. But now we have to convert them. So you want to heat it up to 185 degrees if you're using the high temp alpha, and just get your water to 185. Throw in your flake corn, stir it in good. Add your alpha amylase immediately. Stir it all in good, and it'll start the process of breaking those sugars down, and then let it cool to whatever temperature your glucose has you add it, 140, 120, 100, depending on what formulation is used. So follow your label on that, and you'll be able to do branch it and finish it on out. It's a lot easier. Don't have to risk scorching. You don't have to cook it for 90 minutes. So it's a lot easier, a lot more convenient. And if there's not a lot of difference in price, you really like it. A lot of people like the flavor too. So yeah. But with the flaking, also, it's not going to be like you don't get any benefits of malt. So you need to use your exogenous enzymes if you're going to use the flake stuff. That's awesome. That's great. I wish my first try was good, or my second or third. But yeah, I scorched quite a few till I learned how to cook. I was pretty young and dumb. What's going on, Rodney? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, it was good seeing you, Brad. Met some Shriners too this weekend. I want to give a hats off to the Shriners. We have a Shriner uh, festival in Pikeville every year, and it's been going on for like 50 years. Called Hillbilly Days, and it's been a festival. I know you said Shiner, not Shriner, but it made me think about that. Um, but they were doing some benefits and stuff, and we signed quite a few things for them for their auction and stuff. So it's going to be nice. But they have a festival for the last 50 years in Pikeville, Hillbilly Days. It's always a great festival and a lot of shine and crafts brought out. But it's been going on for quite some time now. But it's always good. But it's good meeting you, Rodney, for sure, brother. Yeah, you'll notice a difference between a ferment that was like 1.1 versus 0.98, or something like that. You'll definitely notice a difference. And you'll notice it won't be dry. As far as how much sweetness, ethanol itself is pretty sweet. So yeah, it should make for a pretty good drink. Most people want to get all the sugars out of it because it increases the amount of alcohol, your yield. So you probably lost some yield, so you're not going to get as much as you would typically get, but flavor wise, it should be pretty good. What's going on, Dexter? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, we're having a good time, man. I tell you, I'm feeling better, man. I ate a big old dinner tonight, and I've been tired since I got back. Really, I haven't slept good. I went to bed. I have trouble sleeping. I want to sleep in the afternoons, and it's tough on me. Uh, and it's hard to just, I don't get a good deep sleep. I don't know if any of y'all are old yet or not, but when you start getting old, you have to get up and use the bathroom about 4 or 5 times a night. And when you're only getting 4 or 5 hours sleep and you're up every hour having to use the bathroom, you're not getting good REM sleep, right? And then in the afternoons, it's like you run down, and that's when you really the tiredest is get so run down that you can sleep for a few hours before you have to wake up. And unfortunately, that's the cycle I'm in right now. And I was really tired after I ate this evening. I wasn't feeling good. I don't feel good after I eat anyway, but um, I got irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. So after I eat, I always get sick. And I was tired and I didn't feel good. It does, but and I hate being this way, but there are a lot of people out there that got a lot worse off. So I hate it. Makes me feel a little bit better. It could be a lot worse. Knock on wood. I could have the big C or a lot of other issues that a lot of other people have. So I guess if upset stomach and nausea is the only thing I have to deal with every time I eat, that's that's a lot better than some others. So I don't know. I feel guilty taking solace and knowing others have it worse than me, but I just thank God that it ain't me. It could be worse. So I just try to count my blessings and look on the bright side instead of dwelling on the negatives. It's nothing you can do about it anyway. Just take the medicine and keep on going. That's awesome, man. That's great, brother. Yeah, you'll love the electric. I can't wait to get mine going. It was a good time. It was a really good time. I wish we gotten there earlier and gone Friday and gotten both days in, but it's a great festival. It's a good time. We have a good time down there. I missed Hillbilly, I missed Phil Billy and Big Easy and Sandman and there was a few others. Moonshine or Prohibition wasn't there. So I miss seeing some of those old buddies of mine, but you know, everybody gets busy, got a lot of things going on, and it's hard to make every festival. There's so many of them, and but yeah, definitely missed seeing old Prohibition too. We were talking about me and Shua were talking about him. It was good. It was good, bro. We weren't dogging you, bro, but we were having a good time. It's good meeting Shua's girlfriend and talking to Shua. And Alfredo, I hadn't seen him and Wendy in a while. It was good talking to them. What's going on, Mash Brothers? Good to see you, bro. How's it going? Wormy McStummers. What is that? That's that icon. I can't see it. Lord, you gonna get my magnifying glass out here. Let me see, what is that? Oh, that looks like a mug of beer with some, I don't know. Looks like a broken mug of beer or something. I can't tell what the hell it is. My eyes ain't what they used to be. You're getting old when you start keeping one of these around, right? Just the old magnifying glass. There it is. But yeah, I hate wearing my reading glasses all the time. I hate having them on my nose, and sometimes I just get such fine print I can't see it. So, you're getting old and you got a magnifying glass that you use all the time on your desk, right? And little notes everywhere. And which, let me write down that Big Easy's link here. Where the hell is it? There it is. Okay, there it is. Okay. Let me write down that link so I don't have to open this back up and write it down later. And he may have sent it where I can just click on it, but I want to make sure. Cool. Definitely check it out. All right, Big Easy. I hope you start getting on that project I got you now. We need us a corn roller, right? We need a steam roller for our corn, so we can just run it through that steam roller and gelatinize it and make flake corn. I've never really looked into how hard that would actually be. Seriously. I'd say Ian and Sandman and Phil Billy and me put our heads together. I guarantee you we could come up with a good steamroller. That'd be the next big thing. You'll see Vever Steamroller. Vever Steamroller right there. Yep, you'll see it. That'll be what's coming next. Temu. You can find it on Temu, Steamroller. Oh, wow. I'm reading a little bit about it. Grains sit in a vertical steam chest, often 30 feet tall, for about 30 to 50 minutes. So it actually cooks in this steam rolling process. So it's not as quick as I thought. I thought it just was so hot, and so it actually cooks. Heats and moistens, softens the kernel, and cooks the internal starches. Good to know. That's interesting. I'm glad I looked this up. Then the hot softened grain drops through a heavy counter-rotating corrugated steel cylinders and presses it into a flat flake, and then dried and cooled. Flake grains contain high moisture and heat, so they pass through the fluid bed dryer and stabilize pretty quickly. Unlocks the nutritional value in the starches. It's good for your cattle too, for those that have cattle, and also for your chickens and stuff. It's a lot better to feed them the grains this way than to feed them cracked corn. Actually, you really don't want to feed them a lot of cracked corn. It's not real good for them. Yeah, we wish you could have been there too, but it was a good time. Met a few viewers. It was great to see some, and I'm glad y'all came up and introduced yourselves, and it was good seeing everybody. OBX, yeah, Outer Banks sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be there. I've always wanted to go to that, and I know uh, a lot of people talk about making it to that one, and it's a pretty good time and good festival every year. Beautiful place too, Outer Banks. It's very nice. Uh-oh. I was just talking about that too, man. Man, I hate that. All right, you just gotta do what the doctors tell you, man, and pray. And I mean, everybody beats it that can, and you just gotta, if you keep a positive outlook and strive. Got a buddy of mine that's a little bit about a year or two younger than me, and he went through a major cancer and had a brain cancer, and he's a fighter, and he literally was a fighter younger. I mean, he boxed a lot, but definitely gotta fight it and don't let it get you down, man. They got to do the chemo and go through and do everything they can. Force yourself to eat when you don't want to, and getting sick. But I hate to hear that, brother. But hopefully it's a cancer that they can use some radiation and some chemo on and take care of it. There are some alternative ways to help treat. I don't know enough about them to recommend them. I know a lot of people talk about a lot of different things, and a lot of holistic type medicine. I wish I knew more about it. I've been fairly fortunate. Most of my family, been skin cancer. My grandfather had skin cancers and had, like had a lot of it cut off his ears over time. They just go in and cut it out. It was that type, no big deal. And I'm pretty sure I've got skin cancer too, being a redhead and have that genetic disposition. Um, and they'll just cut it out. But we've been fairly lucky. Most of our issues tend to be with heart. So, yeah, we'll keep you in our prayers, brother. Hopefully they'll be able to. Hopefully it'll be one that they can take care of pretty easily, man. And have had a lot of people that friends of mine that's had it and they battled it and won and been years and years and years in remission. And that's just got to keep positive because your mind can have a big impact on how your body handles and treats things. And if you let it get you down and let it defeat you, often it will. So you got to have that fighting spirit and kick its ass. And it'll definitely help you. Keeping that good vibe in your head and that positive outlook. Definitely, your mind can help heal your body. With just that thought, and keep that positive thought and keep that fight and that will, and it'll definitely help you. But we're here with you, brother. And anytime you want to talk, man, just give me a shout. You got my you got my messenger. You can call me directly through that. I get calls all day and night. Which probably, I tell you what, wait, my sleeping pattern, it's probably better to call me 2 in the morning than 9 in the morning. But yeah, man, if you want to talk anytime, bro, got quite a few friends that have battled that and won, and not so many so far that haven't. So medicine's come a long way. Just be glad you're in the 21st century and not the 20th, when there wasn't such good alternatives. But hopefully we'll get some more. What's going on, Scott? Good to see you, brother. What's going on, Dirty? So I drained all my mash and then took the wet grains and put them in the thumper, ran the mash, and it was fantastic. Awesome. So instead of throwing away the sludge, I got an extra half gallon. That's awesome. Hell yeah. So if Phil Billy, and hopefully Ian's still watching, Big E. Hopefully they're still watching. That's kind of like what I've been talking about. Instead of just using water to steam food, just put your mash over there, and then sparge all the yeast and all the fine stuff out of your grains, and dump your grains into the thumper or cream corn or fresh corn if you want to, and run it through that. And man, it's you don't have to water it down with running steam through it. You run you mash through that sludge. Good stuff. But I do like sparging off most of the fines, getting a lot of the yeast out of that and a lot of dead yeast, and just, throwing all the cracked corn and all the grains. Hell yeah, it works great. Stuck all grain sour mash. What can I do to get it going again? What do I need to check pH? Usually with especially if you're adding a back set like we do, it's always the pH gets dropped down from that back set. It's really acidic. Throwing in those oyster shells, throwing in that cheesecloth pouch, make you a big pouch, of those oyster shells and keep them in there. It's great for sour mash because it'll help you keep that pH from crashing down. And it keeps it sour. A lot of people think that the sour mash, the sourness comes from the spent grain, and no, the bitterness comes from the back set that you're adding, and it's such a low pH. Your pH is going to be about 3.5 to 4, 0.5, somewhere in that range. It's going to be more acidic, but that's fine. But once you add those oyster shells, it'll help keep it buffered to around 4.5, and that's perfectly fine for your most all. Well, if you're using Fleischmann's bread yeast or something like that, it's not going to be so good for that. But most distilling yeast and wine yeast and stuff, they're acclimated for acidic, conditions like that. So it's not going to be a big deal for them. But yeah, 3.5 to 4.5, and then especially 4 to 5. 4 to 5 is great, but you're not going to get most of your sour mashes at a 5 pH. Most of them is going to be in the 4s because of the back set that we're adding. So, but don't use so much back set that it drops that pH, because it's pretty acidic, and you offset that acidity with water and sugars and stuff that we add and supplement, right? So it helps neutralize some of that, negative pH that we're adding with that back set. Best thing to do with that, once you develop a regiment, each generation, how much back set to take out, how much sugar you're going to need to add that sugar to that hot back set, stir it in, let it cool, and then add it, and then add your water, and then add some fresh grains, take out some grains and add some fresh grains, and help keep that flavor profile up. And you can just keep it going forever. If you take about 10-15% of the grain out and keep adding that amount back in, you can use a little strainer, get in there and, get all your juices out in one of those little kitchen strainers, right? The metal screen strainers. Just scoop it out, stretch it, and then just dump it in a jug or a bowl, and just measure how much you take out, press it, get all your liquids out, and just measure visually how much you're taking out, and then add that much cooked corn back into it, right? Or you can just use sweet corn too. Just grind it up and add it back in there. It depends on how many gallons. So, a couple of handfuls is fine if you got like a 10 or a 20 gallon. If you got a 50 gallon, then, you're going to need, pretty good amount. But once you get so many in there, more doesn't really help. It'll help buffer, but not enough. Sometimes it's not enough. But it'll dissolve them away, and you can just leave them in there. And sometimes you have to add it. After a while, you need to start adding more, right? Because it'll eat away at them, right? As it becomes acidic, that's what it does. It gets slightly acidic, and it'll just eat at that calcium carbonate, and it'll just neutralize itself and just keep it from getting really, really acidic. Yeah, baking soda or pickling lime is the best thing. Pickling lime, if you need to boost pH instantly, pickling lime is the way to go. But if you've got oyster shells in there, you're probably pretty good on that. Um, but some of the yeast may, have expired, and so maybe adding some Adding some fresh yeast might help. What's going on, Frank? Good to see you, brother. Oh, Frank was there showing off his wares. And daggone, I was going to get some pictures to show off. You're going to have to send me some pictures. Wait a minute. You already have sent me pictures. Let me show. Let me see here. He's getting quite a bit of attention over there, man. I saw a lot of people going over to. Well, hey, let me see. What in the world ain't I seeing? Maybe it's on my phone messenger, not Facebook Messenger. I believe it is on my phone messenger. Yeah, it's not been that long since you sent me some pics. I guess it's on my phone messenger. Send me something in Facebook and I can share it and show everybody. But he's got some really nice bars. He's taken some clips off front ends like Jeepsters and old 55 Chevys and different vehicles and made bars out of them. And they're really nice, really nice. Found a local farmer with corn and barley for $15 for 50-pound bag. I'm excited to give it a try. That's awesome, especially on the barley. Oh my. Damn sure. I wish I'd known that, man. I'd have stopped on the way back. But yeah, I'm having trouble finding barley now. The corn, it's okay. Is this heirloom corn or just regular yellow dent? Because if it's yellow dent, you probably, that's an okay deal. I mean, it's not bad. But if it's the same guy that has the barley, you can maybe work in a little bit of a deal. A lot of times farmers will sell yellow dent for half that, right? $7-8 for 50-pound bags. And if you're buying more, they'll definitely give you discounts on volume. But being able to find barley in 50-pound bags for $15, awesome. I'm going to have to learn how to, malt and do some malting if you want that malted flavor. But barley alone is good. A lot of people definitely prefer it malted, but it gives out a good flavor unmalted as well. It's just not the same, right? Same with corn. But yeah, that's awesome deal on the barley for sure. I'm jealous, man. I've not found any barley. I found rye, found wheat, found corn, all cheap as dirt. But I've not found barley for that, man. I may have to make a road trip, bro. Just mashed in some yellow corn, rolled oats, and figs. Awesome. That sounds good. Little mountain brandy, little mix of grain and fruit. Love it. Sounds like a good mix too. But yeah, corn oats and barley. Good combo. Probably one of the most popular combos over the years. I'm sorry, I was worn out this evening. Probably one of the most popular combos that's out there is corn oats and barley. And Cobb, and a lot of people, you talk about the old Cobb moonshine, they think that you're making moonshine with cobs, which they did make a wine out of cobs, corn and cobs, and subsequently added sugar and made a shine, Cobb shine, not the great. Um, but a lot of times when you see that cob, everybody assumes you're talking about a corn cob, but it's actually corn, oats, and barley. It's just the acronym for corn, oats, and barley, and probably one of the best combos out there. And you don't see a lot of oats in commercial distilling, uh, but that's where they're missing out because it really, wheat, rye, barley, corn, those are the four, you know, Pinnacle grains. Everybody uses those. But oats are the unsung hero, man. You don't really hear a lot about them, but they add such a good, soft mouthfeel, especially if you're doing brandies. They're really good grain to do a split brandy with. It gives you that soft creaminess that you want, like in a peach cobbler. So peaches and oats make a good split brandy or mountain brandy. Really good. Um, Split brandy, mountain brandy. There's different terms that sometimes are used interchangeably. We always talked about mountain brandy as a grain and a fruit, and a split brandy as two different fruits in one brandy, right? So, but I guess it's kind of been interchangeable for so long. It's just, but we may have been using the wrong terminology. I wasn't always up with the lingo back in the day. Just like smearing, I called blending because I didn't know that there was a technical term for it until much later. But we always called a split brandy two different fruits going into one brandy, and a mountain brandy where you used predominantly corn with a fruit. But oats, if you want to get that cobbler, that's definitely one of the ways that you can do it. And you can also introduce a lacto infection right there at the very end to get that creaminess, that softness, so you can get the oats, get the creamy softness from the oats, and do the lacto at the end, and get that cobbler effect. But that's a little bit more advanced. But yeah. Missing our buddy Clint. I guess he's working away. He ain't even chimed in. So that means he's busy as hell right now. Hope you're doing all right, brother. But yeah, that's an excellent deal on the barley. In fact, message me and let me know how far away that is. I might have to make a road trip and load up on it because that's a really good deal on barley for sure. Definitely get up with me, Mash. Send me a Facebook message. May have to visit you and get some of that. Go see the man. But I'm assuming that's yellow dent, not heirloom corn, right? Damn, if that's heirloom corn, man, that's hellacious. I'd definitely love to get me some Ohio blue and barley at $15, 50-pound bag, but I don't know, I was just dreaming. But actually, for barley, that's a really good price, and it's not too hard to malt it. It's hard to malt it like a malt house would, and get it a good 100% or a good high 90% malt, and everything equally malted. Trying to think of there's a technical term for it. Trying to think of the technical term. He's got a bunch. But yeah, for those that haven't yet, and you're young, if you've got some family property or you got property, I'll say this every week till I'm dead. Plant trees, plant berry bushes everywhere that you can. Every fence row, just start putting blackberries and raspberries and any kind of bush, blueberries, all along the fence line. You can use the fence as a trellis, and plant you some peach trees and some plum trees and fig trees and apple trees. And 10, 15 years down the road, man, you'll be like, man, I'm so glad I listened to Santa. Because I mean, you can clone them, and propagate them, but absolutely be glad you did it, because you'll have so much free stuff to make brandies and wines with, and it's kind of off the grid too, because who knows, 10, 20 years from now, you'll be like, oh, Santa saved her life, man. Without all this fruit, what would we be eating right now? We got a garden, but now we got all this fruit and, living off the land. I mean, who knows what the future holds, man? So if you got a little land and having that, it's just, it can be very invaluable. And if nothing else, it's going to attract game and wildlife that you can hunt. So even if you don't go out there and pick all the berries, and you're going to have a lot more rabbits, and every one of those fence rows will be loaded with rabbits. You're going to have, deer and a lot of other animals coming in and eating a lot of that fruit. So it's good. It's good for a lot of things. I just don't understand why all the national forests we have, why they, and I guess all these fruit producers kind of pay them not to, but every forest we should have people going in and planting apples and pear trees and peach trees. And I know some of them require pruning and all that, but they'll be fine wild. Let them grow and just, grow naturally. Drop the seed, let other animals pick them up and drop them, a few miles away when they take a dump and propagate and and start adding some of these fruit trees back, and nut trees, as well. So plant you some pecan trees, some walnuts. Definitely be glad you did, especially if you're real young. If you're in your 15s, 20s, 30s, by the time you're, my age, you'll be so glad, that you spent that little bit of time and effort and bringing them up, and it'll pay off in spades for sure. Definitely, definitely. You'll be glad you did. I've got some property with some on it, but I have to drive 2.5 hours to pick blackberries. That's awful. It's a long drive just for blackberries, the gas. I can just buy them, right? A lot cheaper. And they're not the briar or the thornless. So, you get to get torn up. But yeah, on each side of the road, all the way up into the property, blackberries on each side. And they grow out into the road. And you go through there on your 4-wheelers, man, you got to have long sleeves. It'll tear you up. But they're definitely nice, man. They're usually as thick as they can stick. You just go up through there on your 4-wheeler and just stop and pick. Right? Stop and pick. Just all the way up, man. Just load them up. But yep, definitely be something you'd be happy that you did. All right, well, it's getting around that time. It's almost 10 o'clock. I'm getting tired. I didn't feel good when I first got on here, and I'm even more tired now. But it was good meeting a lot of you this weekend for sure at the festival. I had a great time. And look forward to seeing more people, I guess. Farm to Bottle will probably be the next one. Yeah, it was a great time. You're welcome, Mitch. Hey, anybody that's got questions now, it's now's the time to ask. Jump on here and ask all your questions. I know a lot of people listen and don't want to chime in, and they wait for somebody else to ask the question. And like I was telling some people this weekend, I would say 7 or 8%, very small amount of people actually watch this live. I'd say 92 or so percent. Well, they give us Facebook gives us that's just on Facebook, give us the logistics, So sometimes, we only get like 100 or 2 views live. And what you see in the top corner isn't just, that's just the page that you're watching it on. How many people are on the page you're watching on? There's people on each page that I share it to that watch it that get, some of them will be 1s and 2s, and they think, well, there's only 1 or 2 people watching this podcast. No, that's just how many people that are watching it on that particular share. So added up, it adds up to quite a bit more. We'll have a couple hundred maybe, usually around 70, 80-ish. But over the next week, it'll be over 1,000, and that's just on Facebook. And it's just people, and I get messages, thanks for the podcast, and they listen to it at work or on the way to work or on the way home. So this message is all those people out there. If you have any questions at all, and that's the whole reason behind this podcast, is so you don't have to listen to 5,000 hours of videos to get your questions answered. So if you do have some questions that you're not getting other people ask them for you, jump on here and ask them. You can make a anonymous YouTube account and ask anonymously. I know a lot of people are kind of apprehensive about asking, so yeah, make you anonymous YouTube account, and you can make you can get you one of these. I'm trying to think of the name. It's some new company, but anyway, you get free emails through them. They don't know who the hell you are, so get a little free email. Use that as your login for your YouTube, and you can definitely kind of ask your questions anonymously if you want. Used to have a blackberry honey hole, but now it's a suburban jungle. Yeah. That, unfortunately, that's what happens a lot. That's why I say, I don't know what they would do, but I don't know if they'd say or do anything if they caught you out in the national forest planting berries, bushes, or something. If you had a particular place you'd like to go that's owned by the federal park or something, I don't know. There's probably restrictions. I don't know. But I mean, it'd be hard to be a judge and say, all right, you're guilty of planting that apple tree out in the national forest. How dare you plant food out there? But you never know. But you'd think a lot of these parks and places would have it, and just it'd solve a lot of hunger. If starving people just have a place to go, they wouldn't have to panhandle. They just go out in the park, start picking, apples. I mean, they'd probably end up fighting over them or something, but yeah, it'd be nice if we could have a lot more wild blackberries planted. But if you got a place you like to go hunt or something, start you some blackberries along, and you can clone them. So once they get to a certain point, you just cut them off and use this root clone and root them, and they'll start a new plant. I'm sure there's specific ways to do it where it propagates properly, but watch some videos on that, because I know buying plants from like Stark Brothers and all that gets quite a bit expensive. But once you get an established bush, you can start cloning and creating more shoots off that, and just propagate from that, and have quite a bit. So a little bit of work, but it definitely pay off in spades over the long run. But anyway, it's after 10. It's good seeing everybody. It's great seeing everybody at Maggie this weekend. And thanks for coming out and turning out. And thanks for coming and seeing me. I wished I'd had more time to sit and chat with everybody, but I really enjoyed chatting and meeting a lot of y'all. But we will jump off here. Well, hope you can get some of that good rest. Yeah, me too, brother. Yeah, me too. I'm tired. I don't know if you can tell it by looking at me, but oh man, I was nodding off right after dinner, and we watch shows, after we eat, and we'll sit and watch TV shows. And right now, I'm trying to think. La Brea is what we're watching on Netflix right now, and I couldn't even tell you what that last episode was. I was just nodding off and just and elbow me. I'll be over there snoring. But it's pretty interesting show. All right, y'all. Well, everybody have a great week. We'll keep you in our prayers, Mr. Mash Bro. And hope you get feeling better, brother. And stay in touch with me. Yeah, let me know where this Barley Man is. Give me his info. I may have to pay him a little visit for sure. Because everything else, like I said, I can get my wheat and my rye and my corn cheap as dirt. In fact, it's $7 for a 50-pound bag, but not my barley. So I need to know this mine. I'm gonna have to pay him a visit, get a few 100 pounds. Oh, damn it, man! I knew it was gonna be somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, Idaho. Mighty. Well, if I find somebody passing through, I knew it wasn't going to be close, because I look. I don't even know. I know they grow some around here, but it's like for whiskey companies, right? And just all the barley gets bought by Heaven Hill Distillery, and they don't sell it to anybody else. It's allotted, and they get it all. I was afraid it's going to be something like that. I appreciate it anyway, brother. And I hope you get to feeling better and message me anytime you want to talk, my friend. But until this weekend, everybody have a great week. Tune in Friday. We should have the Shit Show Friday going on. That should be a lot of fun. And talk to a lot of people. Enjoy watching the girls on Thursday. That's a lot of fun as well. So a lot of good shows. And like I said, they've got new shows coming on. So look forward to seeing some of those. And should be interesting. And it's always fun seeing new podcasts come up and help promoting the militia. So that'll all be good. But until this weekend, everybody have a great week. And we'll see you, wait a minute, Saturday. Wow. Saturday the 1st. Okay. Yeah. August, man. This month went by pretty quickly. All right. We'll see y'all Saturday the 1st. Till then, peace out. Shine on. Love y'all. Have a great week.